Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
Even if a child would prefer to be in their bedroom on their own for 3 months or for 10 years, it is very, very rare that would actually be a good thing for their development.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
This is Dr. Justin Coulson. Hello, I'm the founder of happyfamilies.com.au. I'm here with Kylie. That's the bit where you say hello, like I said hello.
Oh, hello.
Mum to our 6 kids and my podcast co-host. Last week we had this really great conversation with an author and school principal. His name is Michael Parker. He wrote a book called Talk With Your Kids About Things That Matter. Issues like friendship, respect, honesty, bullying, consent, and pandemic stuff. Like, it was such a fun conversation, such an important conversation, and a book that we have been experimenting with differing levels of success over the last week with our children.
Let's just say the conversations around the dinner table are getting quite interesting these days.
It's been a lot of fun. But because Michael is not just the author of this wonderful book, but also the principal at Newington College, and because everything keeps on changing everywhere, especially for New South Wales, ACT and Victoria. But we wanted to have another conversation with him and get his wisdom around kids going back to school as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Don't push the panic.
No, I shouldn't push the. Yeah, that's right. And sort of ask a handful of questions around that, because we've got Victoria trying to get kids back to school, New South Wales trying to get kids back to school, and children need to be at school, like that daily rhythm that they get into where they get to say bye mum, bye dad, then they catch up with their friends, they go to class. The learning that they do isn't just home learning with a sheet in front of Zoom. They're interacting with their peers, they're listening to their teachers, they're getting involved in conversations and all that sort of stuff. And then they go to recess and they have the social time. Like, it's so different to being at home. So with everything, the fears, the worries, the stresses, all that sort of stuff, all the dramas, that was far too long an intro. Michael Parker, thanks for joining us again.
Thank you. Good to be able to talk to you again.
That was just me getting so excited about kids going back to school. Where do you want to start?
I'm pretty excited too, I would say.
You must be. Yeah, absolutely. Where should we start, hun?
Michael, I'm just wondering, what's important for parents to know right now? When I talk to, all of my friends, everybody is so concerned about their children falling behind. The last 2 years have been ridiculously hard on families and especially our children as they kind of try to be educated in such a new and interesting format.
Yeah.
What's important for parents to understand and know right now?
I think some level of security, and although I'm the head of one school, I hope I can speak to what many of my colleagues in the teaching profession will be doing. Is saying, we'll recognise that learning will have been a little bit patchy for some kids. There'll be some holes, and I'm speaking as a father as well who can identify the holes in my children's where they are. So I think the teachers, many of the teachers, will be going and saying, okay, where are they up to? What have they got to? And let's go from there. So whether at the younger levels, it's what reading level are they at? Let's test that. And when I say test, it doesn't mean test for the student's sake. It's test for the teacher's sake, to know where they are and go right. Let's go from that point and keep the reading going from there, or keep the mathematical knowledge going from there. And for older kids, whether it's their historical knowledge or geography or whatever it is. So I think there'll be a lot of that taking stock. And going from there, rather than just moving ahead as if nothing had happened.
Michael, a lot of parents that I've spoken to are really concerned about sending their children to school for health reasons. Yeah. If they've got younger children, they're worried that the kids might catch the virus. If they've got older children, there's still some vaccine hesitancy, particularly for parents of kids in that sort of 12 plus age group where they're supposed to be getting vaccinated. But there's a lot of people who are saying, I don't know if I want my kids to have this vaccine. There's a lot of people who are saying it's still too new. What kind of feedback are you getting from parents, and what are you saying to reassure them? Because obviously that's going to be a central part of your role over the next little while. Yeah.
So yes, we are getting both. Let's get everybody back, and I'm worried about my child getting sick. A phrase that we've been using for the last 2 years is we operate under the umbrella of health advice. And the health advice is that kids although they catch COVID, they are much less likely to get it seriously. It presents more as a cold or a flu, and they are significantly less likely to pass it on. So we are operating with that advice, that it is for them not hugely, particularly now the adults are vaccinated. It is not a huge issue for them. Now, it will be for a tiny minority, but at the same time, the world needs to move on. The kids need to be educated. They can't sit at home in perpetuity on Zoom. And so schools will do what they can. But it is, we're also sort of offering that comfort that the health advice is giving us.
Let me ask another question that I think is a really challenging one. Many parents that I've spoken with are saying, my kids are much happier at home. I've got a child who's got anxiety, or I've got kids that are on the spectrum, or they've got ADHD, or any other kind of additional need, or maybe they've just got quiet kids, the ones who really like their own company and like their own space. What's your response for families whose children are really not wanting to go back to school because they like the lack of sociality. They like the fact that the pressure is off and that things have changed. How do we work with those kids and help them to be in a place where ultimately it's for their benefit to be at school?
Yeah, and I would make that later point. Even if a child would prefer to be in their bedroom on their own for 3 months or for 10 years, it is very, very rare that would actually be a good thing for their development. So the difficulties at school, the learning, the social interactions and the spiky social, and I don't mean bullying or anything like that, but just that daily butting up against other human beings who've got other needs and other things that happen to them, whatever, that is important, and it's preferable to do that. So unless there's something very, very particular about the child or the child's situation or the family, school or being with other people is better for them.
Probably worth also throwing in that most schools have wonderful supports in terms of guidance officers, psychologists, counsellors and the like, who are going to be able to support kids who are feeling that little bit anxious as well.
And absolutely, and the counsellors, I think all the counselling staff are ready to help the kids who have that trouble, adjusting back to what it is to be in a school environment. Many schools will be preparing for that, and it's something for parents as well to be able to have those conversations with their kids. I think that there'll be steps on the way, and there'll be extra things that society has to do, but it's an important place to get to. And I mean, there's always been homeschooling for parents and for families who make that in principle decision that schooling is not for them. And so that was there before, it'll be there after.
Well, we're having an intriguing conversation with Michael Parker, principal at Newington College and author of Talk with Your Kids About Things That Matter. After the break, we're going to delve into our seniors, Year 12 students, and find out how we can help them.
It's the Happy Families Podcast.
Imagine a home where discipline got results without anyone having to feel bad or in trouble. The Do's and Don'ts of Discipline is a webinar to help parents set limits with love, compassion and humanity. Find it now at happyfamilies.com.au/shop.
It's the Happy Families Podcast, the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now. And today we are talking with Michael Parker.
He's the author of Talk with Your Kids About Things That Matter and the principal at Newington College. Michael, thanks again for taking the time to have a chat with us about this. Year 12 students are really under the pump at the moment. There's all kinds of pressures. Parents are worried about how their lives are going to be affected because they're not going to potentially have had the ideal preparation leading into their ATAR and their HSC studies or their VCEs or whatever it might be in whichever state it is. What are you seeing in terms of stress levels for parents and students in that senior year, Year 12, and what advice are you giving to those families?
So for most kids, the stress levels are significantly up, and I think that is because two reasons. One, the changed nature of how they learnt the last part of their HSC, and also the uncertainty. I mean, the number of changes that there have been. So it's totally understandable that the stress level's up, and also that most of them haven't been seeing all their friends. And they've missed out on the ritual. I can keep counting them off. Yeah, there's a whole series of reasons why kids can easily be feeling more stressed. Two factors I think that it's important to remember is that it's still a level playing field. I mean, everybody has experienced home learning, and there's been different, well, not everyone, but there's been different types of home learning. But there has been, it is something that hasn't just happened to them. It's happened to tens and tens and tens of thousands of kids. There is also a pretty elaborate misadventure procedure or an equity procedure for the whole schools who haven't been able to get to school and do their artwork and so on. I mean, yeah, in a funny way, there's so many people are leapfrogging using that equity access, and there's almost no one left to leapfrog over. The other point is that ATARs particularly, where the number really matters. That's for kids going to university, and the universities, as it turns out, really need domestic students next year. So,
of course, because there's no one coming in from overseas, so they're not going to reach their quotas. They need more students in the classrooms. You'd expect that the ATAR requirements would drop.
Yeah. So I think that a lot of these kids, despite the roiled experience they have, will end up in the thing that they wanted to do, for that reason.
Just before,
I mean, the level of precision that the ATAR's got. There's, what is it? You go from 30 to 90, 999, and then there's 20 marks within each of those. That level of precision is so minute that I think you can say, look, if I get between an 87 or 89, that's great. Or if I get between sort of 76 and 82, that's where I was looking at. I think if you had a zone rather than obsess on a number, then I think that would help you out as well.
Michael, just before we dive into our last question, which Kylie is looking for, I guess, with a bit of reassurance, something that I also think is worth highlighting is that from time immemorial, Year 12 students have been experiencing all kinds of hiccups, dramas, and even self-sabotage for their final year of school. I'm the walking, talking poster child of the child whose Year 12 was just awful. It was a complete disaster, and I had no desire to go to university. But a few years later, once I'd grown up a little bit and matured, I was ready to be at uni, and that's when my education actually really started. My suspicion is that for children who have had a disrupted senior year of high school, they'll recover pretty quickly. They'll get on with it.
I was the year that the HSC got stolen, and how
did it get stolen? What was that?
Oh, the people broke into where all the paper exams were kept, and you could I won't mention the area. But you could go to the local McDonald's and get a burger, a fries, and a chemistry exam, and it was crazy. And then cut a long story short, Triple J got I think it was Double J at the time, but anyway, Triple J got the exam, and then they read the ancient history exam out over the radio while I was studying and listening. I was studying something, but I was listening to Triple J, and they read one of my exams out over the radio. And I remember thinking this has to be a dream because your exam doesn't get read out over the radio. But anyway, that exam got put back 3 weeks. My schoolies went down the drain and everything, and I'm still here.
Yeah, and I think that's a really reassuring message. The kids, they'll get what they get, but if they really want to do something, they'll figure out a way to get in, even if this year's been disrupted. They might get in next year or the year after or when they're 26, but they'll be able to do what they want if university's where they want to go. And for those that aren't worried about uni, it's probably not even that big of a deal. Yeah.
I think when you're getting, if you're not looking for uni, you're trying to push yourself a bit, you're trying to learn that stuff. Because, this stuff in Year 12 is worth learning for itself, not just to get a number. And, you'll still have all that, and you'll have the HSC, and employers will take them. So,
That's
So
right.
I think-
They still need to hire people.
That's right.
So, Michael, I'm wondering what would be your take-home message for parents?
For parents of all the different kids, and I say this as a parent myself of a year 12 and a year 10 student, to try to for the rest of this year, take a deep breath, because I think we'll get there, and I think we'll get back to normal. It's going to be some choppy water on the way through, but the steps are in the right direction, and the steps are about getting kids back and getting them with each other and having the joy of them seeing each other and learning. And it is very, very, very likely that we will get there by the end of the year or beginning of next year.
And I'm wondering if you have a take-home message for the students, especially our Year 12s coming to the final stretch.
We're really looking forward to seeing you again. The schools are empty. I'm at the school every day, and it's bizarre with sort of tumbleweeds going down. I know your teachers are probably people who nag you for your homework and they tell you to pull your socks up and stuff, but they like you, and they want to see you again, and they're looking forward to having you back. So, come back with a spring in your step, because we're looking forward to having you.
I love that message. I think that might be one of the nicest things that you could have said, and it's totally not what I was expecting. But Michael Parker, principal of Newington College, author of Talk With Your Kids About Things That Matter, thank you so much for sharing your ideas about kids in the lockdown states preparing to head back to school and get things going again. It's been a pleasure to chat with you.
Pleasure talking with you too. Thank you.
The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. Craig Bruce is our executive producer. If you enjoyed the podcast, we'd love for you to leave a rating and review at Apple Podcasts. When you do that, other people find out about the podcast. Then it shows up in their feed. They get to listen to it, make their families happier. Who could ask for more? Please jump on and spend 60 seconds leaving a rating and review. 5 stars, please. We really like the 5-star ones. The other ones, not quite so important. And if you'd like more info about making your family happier other than here on the podcast, please check out happyfamilies.com.au.